No, no, no.
Just setting up this thing.
Setting up.
Take quite a long
Phone
time.
connection nice. How nice it looks. Okay. How do I share this? Try see which one is better. That one is YouTube Live.
I think YouTube is better.
YouTube is better? You can compare lah, I guess.
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, then YouTube lah.
Yeah.
Then YouTube lah.
Everyone can
Sorry sorry. Okay lah, everyone can access YouTube, right? So, yeah, just YouTube lah. Then the best thing is YouTube, I can just save this as a recording afterwards. Okay. Am I sharing my audio? Okay, I think my audio is on. It's been 3 years I haven't started YouTube Live. Oh, is it laggy? It's lagging.
It's not like
It's okay, right? Okay lah. Okay. Then without further ado, I'll just start lah, cause or else it's too slow. Then yeah. Okay, so hi everyone. Sorry for the delay. Some technical issues, ironically. So today we are going to continue the part 1 of the React workshop. So before that, can I just check how many of you still recall what we discussed in the first part? Components? Map and filter. Only this. Okay, use state. We discussed about state also. So state itself is part of the hooks, right? Use state is a part of the hook. Okay, so basically we discussed about what React is, why we need to use React. So anyone still remember why we need to use React? Responsive design, you can get it with CSS.
intuitive.
Dynamic, specify more, certain keywords.
The DOM.
Reactive,
The DOM.
in a sense reactive, yeah, exactly. Reactive because you want to manipulate the DOM, the document object model. You want to change it dynamically lah. Okay, so that's why we use React instead of having to do the document.getElement by ID and stuff lah. Okay, so last time we did what projects? If you all remember, what hands-on did we do? The gossip box, exactly. If now we close the laptop, can you all still remember how to implement it? You will see it today again. Okay lah. Okay. Anyways, yep. So before this, first one is I created a different repo for today. So please try to clone this repository, which is the github.com/JasonChristopher21 slash this one. So this is basically just the usual things from last few weeks. Still the same thing. However, I tried to refactor them and also I installed some additional dependencies basically. Okay, so please try to set this up. Then once it's done, let me know. So this repo itself, just a rough idea, I changed from the normal create React app to using Fight. So it's no longer npm start, but now it's npm run dev. Okay, so yep. My purpose of sending this now is so that I can test y'all, see if y'all remember how to use Git. It's now npm run dev. Oh should npm install first, then npm run dev. I think should npm install everything, because the node modules are different. So which one is this one? Oh, yeah. npm install first.
Oh yeah.
How do you scan the output?
Setting device.
Yeah.
I think there's a
This is why I have to show it now. If I showed before, right, you will ChatGPT this. Can? Yeah. After you git clone, then run npm install and try npm run there.
Is this
You should see the portfolio site, a cleaner version, I guess. Yeah, it's a bit cleaner, right? If you scroll down, you'll see the other components also. But I haven't styled them. Styling is part of today's lesson. I guess might not be relevant to you, but who knows if you need to make your own portfolio, right? In that case, just use my app. Promoting steps, guys, promoting steps. Okay, nice. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll just show. Okay. Yeah, okay, Paul, right? You can just go to my GitHub and copy link from there also. I hope at least one person tried to do something else from last 2 weeks tutorial on a state management. No one? Never mind. Okay, so let me just run through what changes I did, right? So this is the repo structure, which contains like basically similar to last time, the last 2 weeks material. So this part, all the way from about until the styles.js CSS is basically the refactored version. Anyone knows what refactoring is?
refactoring? You make it's some like making like abstract like something
Abstracted, okay, that's a keyword there.
and encapsulate.
Okay. Basically, refactoring on a rough outline is just changing the structure without changing the functionality. It's changing the repo structure, but doesn't really change the functionality, nor design, or nor anything. It's just internal management. Okay. So I tried to switch around, like put some of them into the folders. Like now, if you see the navbar, hero, all of them are under components. Then under components, there's another folder also. So this folder is basically containing the gossip box, and there's a component called random cat fact, which we are going to implement today. And finally, at the bottom, there's like some additional files which might not be present from if you use the npm start last time. So let's not touch this for now, but we might need to touch the tailwind.config later on. Okay, any questions so far? No questions? Okay. Okay, this was what we learned last time. We learned about React, some basics on React. Fragment, anyone still remember what fragment is? Oh, it's still lagging. Anyone remembers? No, it's not the one in curly brackets. Curly brackets one is just JavaScript. Fragment is basically creating a div without specifying a div. The diamond brackets empty thing. Okay, that is what we call a fragment. Okay, so we have fragments, then we create components, events, state management, and also hooks. Okay, so last time, our goal itself is basically to create a skeleton personal portfolio page. You will see that everything is there, but like it's just very basic stuff lah. There's no formatting, no stuff. Okay, so today what we are going to do is basically we want to try to do some routing. Anyone heard of routing before? What is routing?
Navigating to different pages.
Okay, basically navigation. If you have different pages now, we want to try to link them together. Okay, which we didn't discuss last time. Then REST API and how to actually conduct API calls in React. Afterwards, we will discuss about useEffect, which is another hook that is important. Finally, some CSS. Okay, so the goal for today is basically we want to try to improve the complexity of the website as well as some formatting. Okay, any questions so far? Oh, it's raining. Questions? No? Okay. Okay, if no questions, then I'll start with routing today. So routing, first thing to note is React itself is what we call a single page application. What do we mean by single page application? It's basically saying that this web app, instead of fetching new HTML files and load the HTML file, right? what we do in React is basically if we want to switch to something, we rewrite that single page to the contents of another page. Okay? So instead of fetching another HTML document, it's still within the same HTML document, but you rewrite the contents. That is why if you go to the public page, there is only one index.html. So the document itself is only one, but you modify the document. That is basically React single page application. Okay, so single page application does not mean that you can only have one page, but rather like it's only one HTML document, but you rewrite the contents. Okay, so now suppose you want to link two pages together from one page to another, then what do? You basically remove the contents of the current page, you rewrite the page with the contents of the second page. Okay, so this rewriting is actually what we call routing. Okay, so this process is achieved through the JavaScript libraries. We don't have to implement this on our own, but for React, we are going to use what we call a React router. Okay, for Vue also there's a Vue router, which personally I think is easier, but since everyone uses React, I have to conform to that. So yeah, we are going to use React router for today. So the main goal for today, right, for this current section, is that just now you've seen that we have like all the about and all the stuff, right? These are already linked into the initial homepage from last few weeks. Okay, so today we want to try to link these two components together, which is your gossip box and also your random cat fact. We want to do it such that whenever this URL, say localhost 5173, if we do slash, say cat fact, then it will go to random cat fact. If we do slash gossip box, then it will go to gossipbox.jsx. Okay? As of this point, any questions? No? Okay. Okay, if no questions, then the first thing I want you to do is to actually get your hands on in setting up the React router. I haven't set this up for you, so that you all get a chance to set this up yourselves. Okay? So try to run this command. This command is actually, I just search internet for the command. React router documentation will tell you what command to run. So first one, you install this React router DOM, then local forage, match sorter and sort by. So this is also one thing to note. If you do npm install with like packages space package, right, it basically installs all of these four sequentially. So you don't have to run npm install one by one. Okay. Come on guys, up your typing speed. My typing speed is 140.
Different volumes.
Yeah,
It's fine. It's fine.
it's fine. Just ignore it.
So, I'm telling you, right, once you enter development, you will see that warnings are just warnings. Last time for our orbital, right, our packages had like 72 warnings.
Just ignore it.
I'm like, nah, React Native has too much vulnerability. So, yeah, 9 severe vulnerabilities. I'm not fixing that. Remember, guys, in development, if it works, it works. Sorry, Jasmine. Hey, but I will review your PRs again. Huh? I will review your PRs. If it's very trivial, I'll just reply one. Okay, set up already? Install? Install, okay. Okay, once you install, right, then we want to try to first create something called a browser router. Okay, so here's what we are going to do now. Actually, I prepared animation for this. Okay, so hover over to your main.jsx file. So your main.jsx file, it should contain the import stuff. I think the YouTube is laggy. How come your YouTube is fast? Okay, so first one is, this is your necessary modules, right? So before importing, it's something like this. But now, after you try to import, then it should be added some line. This is basically importing the React router stuff. Okay, so you import first create browser router and also router provider. These two are imported from the React router DOM package. Not sure why it's called React router DOM instead of React router. Why is the latency so bad? Hmm. Okay. Everyone imported? Okay. If imported, then that is the first step, which is to import the React router itself. The second step is basically now, after importing, we want to set up our routes. Okay. So to do that, what we want to do now is to actually create the browser router. So this browser router will be like the list of routes that will be present in your web application. So if you import this certain statement, basically you're creating a router which uses the browser router, and inside you specify all your specific routes, and for each route, which element do you want to render. Okay, so on our basic stuff, we will put the route as a normal slash. So normal slash means that it's a root route in a sense. So it's the root one. That means every time you go localhost, then this will be the first thing that they will render. Or you can also do something like star. A star means that any single route will actually go there, unless specified. Yeah. So usually star is used for showing like not found picture. We have for not found, and that's what we usually do. Okay. Clear? Questions? Yes. I mean, JavaScript you can choose to have or not. But if you run Prettier or ESLint, then it will edit automatically for you. Uh, you can, or you can have not have comma also. It's fine. So if you have a trailing comma, right, on development side, it's easier to just enter compared to every to enter first. Something like that. Okay. So finally, once we are done with the browser router, all we need to do is to set up what we call the router provider. So the router provider is connecting the router directly to our application. So to do that, just need to insert this line called router provider. Specify the router as the browser router that we created. Then after this is done, try run npm run dev. It should be okay for now, but we haven't specified the routes for the catfrag yet. npm run dev in the ES project directory. npm space run space dev dev. Everyone set up the routes already? Can see npm run dev is okay, right? No errors?
No.
Yeah. Hmm? Yeah, then you can run this. Control click. That will open in the browser. Hmm? Okay. So now once we are done, we only set up the route for the root. Okay? Then our next step will actually be adding the new routes. Since we want to link together the random cat fact and also the gossip box, right? Okay, so you want to add new routes here. Now, first thing I want to demo is suppose I want to add a new route that connects to the gossip box. Okay, then I specify first, this would be my new route, which is in your localhost 5173, I want to specify such that if I do slash gossip box, it will run to this gossip box. Okay? First thing, on your main.jsx still, what we want to do now is to import your gossip box component. So try to do that. Import gossip box from the component slash game slash gossip box.jsx. And once you're done with that, all you need to add now is to just add another route to the router. And you are done. Simple, right, to add a new route. So if you now go to your local host, it should, if you do slash gossip box now, it should work. If it doesn't work, restart your server, Control C, npm run dev again.
Done.
Looks right. That is original routing. Might be useful for you. On Django, it has something similar to that,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but it's URLs.
Mm.
Yeah, in Django, you just need to URLs, specify the path, then specify the view. That it's the same thing.
Oh.
Okay, so the next task is okay, this one is basically the now without seeing my help, right? Can y'all add the cat fact component? Try to see if y'all understand. I think no need 3 minutes. 1 minute should be. Oh, we just load it. The component is created. It's just the implementation is not there. Oh, it's the wrong one. It's not randomly generated. I have a 5-second latency of the YouTube, so I have to push my specs. Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. Debugging is an essential skill, JR. Actually, it's not an essential skill now. Just ask ChatGPT.
So what is the essential skill now?
Using ChatGPT. Find the right outcome from get the right.
Even I asked ChatGPT for my project ideas. I send a project handout, right? I ask ChatGPT give me 50 project ideas, then I select which one is nice. Don't spill ah. Oh shit, I'm using YouTube Live. Okay, now if we hover over to your random cat fact here, okay, you will see that this random cat fact is not random at all. In fact, it only just uses the current state, which is the in the cartoon Tom and Jerry stuff lah. Okay, so it's not random at all. It's just hard-coded value. Okay, so that will bring us to the second section of today's tutorial, which is actually how to implement, how to fetch calls from the backend. Okay, so this part might be more theory lah, because I have to specify what API is. But as of now, routing, any questions? Two aspects I didn't cover. First one is nested routes. If you want to do like route/route, something like that. Second one is dynamic routing. Say if you want to do like post/1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like specify the ID. Okay, these two I think y'all can check the documentation your own, or it can be specified next week. Okay, so that one I leave it for y'all first. Okay, now let's discuss some stuff about REST API. Before this, anyone has idea what REST API is? What is REST? Sleep. Okay, so REST itself is actually shorthand for representational state transfer. REST is not tied to a certain technology, but itself it is just like a set of constraints. So it's like a set of principles that you need to follow in order to categorize your API itself as REST. So what principles are there? Don't ask me on the slides if you all don't understand, because this one is GPT generated. Anyways, okay, the principles of REST. First one is that REST itself should be stateless. What does it mean by itself being stateless? Suppose you do a get. Okay, you do a get slash catfact. Okay, then this get itself, it should follow like a certain deterministic, should not depend on previous states. Although later on you will see that the random catfact is in fact random. Yeah, but the get itself, right, it should not depend on previous states. So whatever requests it sends now, the server can process without having to depend on, say, 2 requests that has to be sent simultaneously to actually get the request. Okay, so that is the first principle. Second principle is a client and server connection. It should be now that whoever runs the web app, this will be your client. Whoever runs the server, this will be basically your server, your backend. So there should be a front end and backend distinguishment. Afterwards, there should be communication between your front end all the way to the backend. Backend will send data to the front end. So there's like this certain flow of asking and receiving. Okay, so this is the client-server architecture. Afterwards, there should also be a certain interface, and this interface itself is already specified by using the HTTP standard methods, using get, put, patch, delete, post. There's others like options and head, but we are not going to touch that. Okay, so the main items are these 5 get, post, put, patch, delete, and these 5 are basically like just normal standard interfaces. You do not get items by using a post request. Okay, so these are basically like some common conventions that regardless of whether you're a front-end, back-end developer, these should be expected. So say if you want to retrieve data, which method do you use? Get, exactly. If someone implements retrieving using a post, right, then the developer is dumb. Okay, so this is like a common convention that everyone should follow lah. Okay, so that is basically the principle of the uniform interface. Up to this point, any questions? Okay, right? Okay. Last time I had an argument with my tech lead regarding status code for one of the results. I think I'm correct, but my tech lead doesn't agree. Anyways. I will describe later. There's a TLDR also. Then next thing is something called a resource and an endpoint. These two are fundamental concepts which is basically used for the REST architecture and to complement the HTTP itself. So what is a resource? A resource is basically any entity, any data, any objects. For example, if you want to get from users, then these are basically your users' resource. or you want to get from products, then this is like your resource. If you link it to like some kind of a backend, then this would be like some kind of a table itself lah. This is your current resource you want to get from this item. Then this is your other resource that you want to get there. Now these resources are actually mapped directly to a specific URL to retrieve that certain item or to post to that certain item, right? So this URL is what we usually call the endpoint. Okay, so whenever you hear the word API endpoint, that means it's always like this URL plus what resource you want to access. Okay, that is basically your endpoint here. So the endpoint itself is a URL that corresponds to a resource. Say for example users, if you want to get users/5, that means you want to get the 5th entry inside the users table. Or you want to do like products/10, then you want to get the 10th entry in the products table. Actually, that depends on how the backend is done also. Suppose that the backend does like products/ID, but the ID is like ×2, then of course that will be the 20th item lah. Okay, so it depends on how it's going to be done, but mostly it's always the endpoint will be mapped to the resource, then whatever parameters you specify will be done there. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so all you need to know is that REST itself is stateless, client server, and also uniform interface. It should not differ from the normal HTTP status methods, HTTP methods. Okay, then whenever you want to invoke an API call, specify the URL plus the endpoint. Okay, any questions? Easy, right? Now, we move on to the request methods. Ryan's question, right? Okay, so request methods, we have 5 methods. First one is the get. Get is used to retrieve data from the server, obviously. Okay, so get itself, the specific item of this get is that it should not contain a body. Okay, so you don't want to get from a specific body. This is not needed. Instead, we usually use like either through parameters, also like some query parameters also. You know, if you go Google, then there's a question mark, ID equals 1 and something something. These are basically your query parameters. Okay, which I think I'm not going to demo here because it's a pain to develop the backend. But yeah, last time on the onboarding, right, have anyone actually tried this link? So this in fact, right, is just a small Easter egg. Let me demonstrate here. Anyone knows how to use the inspect in Google Chrome or something like that? Okay, so first one is just do Ctrl+Shift+I, right? Ctrl+Shift+I will give you basically the inspect item there. Then yeah. So once you do that, right, you can just go to like say the bit.ly, then it should directly like give you the certain item. Which, yeah, you know what it is. Yeah, so these are basically all the requests that is sent. Yep. You will see that this thing, when we type in bit.ly/welcome.commit tag, right, this is basically what we call the get request. You can see in the network section, what are the URL method, any headers if included. Okay, so these headers, these are basically default headers that are being sent when we do this. Then you also see the status code. Status code says 301 move permanently, basically because the bit.ly is a redirect lah. Okay, so it's just a redirect there. Any questions? No? Okay, then we have post. Post is used to submit data. Then we have put, patch, and delete. So put and patch, these are also used to upload data also. Okay, and delete is obviously to delete an entity from the table. However, this is what you need to know at most. Get, post, put, patch, and delete. This corresponds to basically your create, read, update, and delete. Okay, so get is used to retrieve data. Post is used if you want to create usually. So say if you want to submit a new form, then on the backend, those who attend the backend workshop, now on the backend there will be a new table to store that form entry. So whenever you create a new entry. Okay, so whenever you create say a new entry, new entity, right, then most likely you need to use post. Okay, so post is usually for creating lah. Now put and patch, these two are used for update. Okay, however the difference is put. Whenever you want to conduct a put, you have to specify every single attribute that is needed. So say if the form itself has a name, email address, username, something. If you only want to modify the email address, you still have to specify the name, email address, username. Everything has to be specified. But of course, you specify the name as just the same thing, email, same thing, then username you change. That is your put. If you only want to modify the email address or only the username, then that's the time you use patch. So patch is updating partially. Doesn't need to update the whole entity. Okay? Any questions on when to use this? Delete, I don't need to specify lah. I don't need to specify delete lah. I think this one is obvious. Yeah, so CRUD is going to be something that you might have heard of from Orbital, but for those who haven't, this corresponds to basically 4 specific key actions that most entities would have basically lah. Basically to create an entity, reading the data of it, updating itself, and also deleting. These are the 4 most basic items whenever you have a specific entity on the backend. Okay? Any questions? Or anyone doesn't know what an entity is? I think this one is more on a huge theoretical side lah. But now after this, I think we are going to the practical side. Okay? Yeah. And there's an HTTP request. Once you do a request, right, now the backend will process this. Once it processes, it will return HTTP. Anyone knows the term? Response. Okay? Send its request, return is a response. So this response itself has a certain status code. What is the status code there? Everything that starts with 2 means that the request is successful. Everything that starts with 4 is a client error. 5 is a server error. So this thing is important. Client error means that whoever uses the website is dumb. Server error means that whoever builds the backend is dumb. Okay? So these are 2 things that you have to specify lah. So client error is a front-end problem. Server error is a backend problem. So you know who to call out later lah. Okay? Let's start the blaming game lah. Okay, so for like 400, 400 is usually when it's a bad request, right? So usually when you, for example, you didn't, on the backend side, if you send username, but the username is, for example, what? https://commit.com. It's not a valid username, right? Because of the invalid characters. Or maybe your username is, for example, 我喜欢吃炒饭 in Chinese characters. But now you only insert the ASCII stuff, right? So in that case, if it doesn't conform to what the backend wants as part of the request, then backend should return 400 bad requests. Okay, then 404 is obvious. 403 is usually when you are not authorized. 401 is when you're not authorized. 403 when you cannot access a certain item. Forbidden. It's not because of you're not authorized, but rather because of like, yeah, this point is just not accessible to anyone. Okay, so there's a forbidden item there. Then, yeah, I think usually we will only fall around 400, 401, 403, and 404 lah, usually. Then the important one is your 2xx. 200 is okay. So whenever response 200 means that it's okay lah. Okay? 201 is usually used when you create an item. So when you post items that create a new entity, then backend can return you 201. So 201 is just 200, but saying that this is create. Okay? Then the important thing is also 204. 204 no content means that the server processed this correctly, but there's just no body that is returned in the response. So this 204 is usually used for delete. Because when you delete, you don't have to return anything, right? So just 204. Saying that, okay, I accept. I say that this is successful, but I don't need to show you anything. 204. Okay? Anyone knows why this is important? Debugging? Yeah, in a sense, yeah. I share you my story. So, part of my internship was... Okay, I don't care if this is recorded. But anyways, my internship was okay. Until the last 2 weeks that my full-timers are being fired. Because of company restructuring. Okay? So, us interns, we have left 2 weeks. Then my COO assumed the role of a tech lead. Okay? But the fact that he cannot code. No, he knows how to code, but doesn't know a good coding practice. So his code are ChatGPT generated. So he did the server side. I just need to do the front end side. Connect. There was one time that it's an error, but it works. I don't know why, right? I don't know why. I read his code. His code, right, has an exception catching. If error, print error, return 200, okay. See. So if there's an error, it prints on the server that there's an error, return 200, okay. So on the front end side, if it's a 200 okay, then you know it's successful, right? Yeah. But it's an error. This is why I have to teach this for y'all, so that for the backend people implement it correctly, front end people understand what your codes mean. Because it doesn't make sense for you to receive error 500, error 400, 404, then you return everything as, sorry, it's broken. It doesn't make sense, right? It should be, if it's 400, then you should say, this is invalid. Why? You do a form, right? There's an email, username, something. If one of the fields mismatch, backend will return you 400. But now on the front end side, it's also our responsibility to see, if it's 400, then I have to tell which fields are broken, so that the user can fix. Doesn't say that, something is wrong, please fix, thanks. Doesn't make sense, right? Okay. So this is why front-end people should also know how HTTP works. Okay? Personal bitter experience. Any questions? In case you're wondering, yes, that huge backend stuff he did wrongly was actually about data parsing. So it's a freaking pain to debug. Once I see the code, right, I literally shouted in my office like, what the fuck? Okay, so from the backend side, usually the server will return you response in a certain format. And this format will usually follow what we call the JSON. That's exactly what my friends said. So every project meeting, right, they were always like, I return the JSON. I'm like, yeah. Anyways, yeah. So JSON is a short for JavaScript object notation. No need to bother much about this. JSON is basically just JavaScript object. So whatever is returned will follow the format of an object will have a curly brace. Each attribute will now be mapped as like, say, certain key, ... value. Okay? Then if it's an array, then it will just return an array directly. So JavaScript object is basically either it's an object or it's an array of objects. Okay? String is an object also. So it's possible that the backend just return a string. It's possible.
Every object not to string itself.
Huh?
Not to string itself. It's not to string notation.
String itself is a JSON. Any single primitive type can also be a JSON. You can just return 0, return true, return false. It's also part of JSON. It says. Because it's technically an entity, but not in a correct format. XML? HTML? There's a different type of response. But usually the response from the backend, if it specifies application/JSON, then it's a JSON data usually. We'll stick to JSON data. Let's not use XML stuff. Okay, now practical side. Now we want to call the API. Basically, we want to call the backend endpoints. There are two methods that... Let me just shut off my Telegram first. Okay. So we are going to do API calls now. There are two ways for calling API in React. First one is using a fetch. Second one is using third-party libraries. So a third-party library that we are going to demo here is going to be using Axios. Okay, so why use Axios? First one is you can support more complex fetching. Second one is it's faster, in a sense. It's more robust. Okay, so Axios itself is a third-party library, but this third-party library is used for actually making HTTP requests. Okay, so it's used for both browser-based and also Node.js application. And this thing is actually quite important. Your Axios, it supports what we call a promise-based asynchronous operation. Okay, I will explain what a promise is later. Asynchronous means that you don't have to wait for it to be done in order to actually proceed with like the other items. It's not blocking. In the sense that once it does API call, you can render anything else. This will run in the background. It's possible. Okay, so as for the promise, a promise is basically you know that it will be a certain value. It's just guaranteed for you in the start. The value is not there, but it will tell you that once it's executed, it will return you a certain value. That's a promise. So if you have taken 2030 as promise is similar to completable future. For those who haven't taken, well, good luck. So promise is basically you return a certain value, but at the point in time, the value is not there. Think of it as a lambda, but the item that's returned is not there yet. But you know what is going to be returned. The type you know. Okay? You will see later as well. So today's goal for this section, your random cat fact currently is a hard-coded value. We want to change that. Okay? So we want to try to link the random cat fact itself to our API. So for this, one of the reasons why I didn't come last week is because I spent my time making the API endpoint. So yeah, this is the API endpoint we are going to use today. Actually, you can try type this also on your browser. It should return something. So this is the backend production, and it should go directly to showing the cat fact. I guess you can try first. Yeah, you can type, or I can send as a YouTube comment. Let me send as a YouTube comment. I think it's easier.
Django REST framework.
Yes, it's in Django. Hey, where's my life? It's gone? What the heck? Sharks. Hey. Wait. Okay.
You live in the White House.
Hmm?
Yeah, White House or home? Like, is there a sheet machine that you can
I don't know. I searched this online. Okay. So my reason of building this is because I forgot that the cat fact API existed. So I have to code this out. Okay. Anyways, now let's try to actually fetch this random cat fact and insert it to our app. Okay. So if you try to reload the cat fact, it will actually generate a different one every time. It's not stateless, yes. It's not deterministic, but yeah. Let's call it a REST API for now. Okay, because REST is not fun. Okay, so first one is, let's start by installing Axios. On your terminal, run this command, which is basically to install Axios. npm install Axios. I haven't installed this in the package JSON. Although I did install Tailwind because it's a big thing.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Which looks so old. Okay, npm install Axios. Have you installed already? Okay. Then once you install, this is how Axios works. Okay. So you can do this. First one is to import your Axios. Then these are the three items that would need to be present, unless you use an async, which I will not introduce today. So first one is do Axios.get. Okay. .get itself, it will need to specify a certain parameter, and that parameter is basically your endpoint name. Or it happens to be if like you have a query parameter, then you specify that also. So for example, just now you want to use your cat fact, right? Then you do Axios.get CommIT backend something / cat fact. Okay, so that is your endpoint name. Now the then part, after you do Axios.get, this whole thing will now return you a promise. So a promise itself is the value is not there, but once it's there, you can access the value. So to access the value, that is the time we use a then. Okay? What does then mean? Then means that, okay, I do Axios get first. Once the value is there, then I do this certain item to the value. So then clause is used. You need to specify a lambda expression there. So this lambda expression basically takes in the data. What does it do once the data is available? You specify there. Okay? So you think of it like a pipeline. get, then what do you do to this data? Your catch itself is like some kind of a try catch exception. Okay? Basically, you do it then, but what happens if it's an error? Then it will fall directly to the catch. So suppose if you do like axios.get, but suddenly this endpoint doesn't exist, or like say the endpoint returns you 400 for example, then it will fall to the catch. Okay? So any errors will fall under the catch. Okay? Actually, I think if it's 400, I think it should be then. Because the response is there, but it's an error, I think. But I need to check also with that. Okay? So ideally, both the then and catch now would need to be lambda expressions. Okay? And the lambda expression, it should take in the response as a parameter. For catch, then it will take in an error as a parameter. Should specify E, then the arrow, then what do you do to that error? Okay? So this is like some kind of an example I provide. Still a dummy example. It's still loading. Okay. So say for example, if I have this state. Still remember use state? Okay, so use state, initially it's just an empty object. Call this data and set data. Okay. Then I can do, for example, axios.get some endpoint. Once the response is received, then I will set the data to the field data inside my response. Okay, so response usually it will still be an object. The data itself will be encapsulated under a key called data. Then after the data, it's basically the JSON object that's written by the backend. Okay, then afterwards you do catch. Usually, what do you do for catch is just log into the console, but sometimes you might want to display it to the user also. So it depends on how we are going to do this. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, if no questions now, let's try to implement the random catfag. So you go to your random catfag.jsx. So under this random catfag.jsx, we need to do three things. First one is to create the function that fetches the data. Second one is you have to specify what you do to the random catfag once you retrieve it. And finally, since currently you don't have any event that can invoke it, right? So this one tests your previous knowledge. Create a button. Once you click on it, it should trigger fetching the data from the API. But now once it fetches, right, it should update the state of the catfag. Because you don't want it to just fetch. You want it to be displayed also to the user. Okay? So yeah, try to implement that. And these two might be useful data. First one is this is your endpoint. Second one, this is your response that is sent by the backend. Response has just one key.
I think the axios.get is inside random it's not inside me.
Axios.get is in random catfag. It's not in. Okay. I forgot to specify this also. In case you are tired of typing, if you are careful enough, you actually see in constants.js, I already specified an API URL. Yeah. So there's an API URL over there. You can actually just use this. Import API URL from constants. Then you can use axios.get brackets API URL plus the endpoint. So that way you don't have to type everything again. Let me know if you all have any questions. You can import the URL from so you can just locate the endpoint. Smart. Yeah, well, that's a good use of YouTube live stream actually. Smart. It's the iPad tools.
Response.
The response doesn't have to be response. You can put response. Basically, it just specifies that whatever object that is returned after the axios of get, this will pass under the data.
Okay, but how do I specify the folder name? Go up one. What's your
I know. This one is highly in charge. So should go up one folder. Go up one folder. So the dot just restore. Yeah. Never take notes, ah. Ayo. I mark you. We do a technical cell ranking. I mark you. No. So this thing responds, right? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, when you do Axios get take a certain sequence, what this returns now would be a promise. This returns a promise. Inside this promise, there's an object inside, which you need to be. We need to wait a very well. Okay? So this object itself is basically the response. Okay? Inside the response, then there'll be data. Then after the data, then there'll be a file also inside. And this is what we want to access. See? So if we do say something like access object then something, right? When you do the then, whatever here will be something, right? What this does is this will take in whatever this will take in basically whatever object here will be passed as a parameter to your lambda. Then what you do here is like 155. How's the practicals? Ayo. It's fine lah, I mess up those.
So it's always in data.
Yeah, I should have data.
I mean, every like endpoint special like the
But outside of it, there's like some other fields in so they have you can console log response. I think this should be like the fields of the promise. Because promise itself is an object. There's a how is it basically?
So for structure, what do you do?
It's yeah, but not accessible. Which is basically if this is not executed, then now what we have inside is not only have
Basically, exception.
mark allocation. Now inside the promise is now an exception. The last two questions there's more than 50% of so this exception will now be passed on to whatever lambda is present. Something. This will be it's error
Yeah, like the people want that.
your API URL is wrong. API URL is going to the railway production slash, but it hasn't specified the point.
Functional. I just asking the function name itself.
That is, and how is that spelling?
You look at it. Then we thought all the way.
Let's see. Button on click. It's not a form.
But it's surprisingly used.
And the assist your thing, just
Okay, back. Now this is response to data. Response to data itself is still the case.
Oh, they know that. Oh yeah, it's
Yeah. So you have to really think of it this way. That inside the object is basically a data. Inside the data itself, then that's basically the record. You can see my GitHub. I my report.
This one is the
Directly the endpoint.
the next stuff.
The next stuff. Basically, I just transferred everything. I do a random number.
it is the
Yes. Yes, right. Okay. Wait.
This is like
Debugging is an important skill.
this. I thought access is already like automatic.
The function that calls. You make the function that you wrap it in the function first lah. For now, no need lah, but better async. No, but if I don't know that it's async, it's not async then. Okay, I use fetch, but I don't use. For now, you can try from the afterwards. Yeah, we actually jump to API calls already. Yeah, you can see the previous section.
Oh,
Thank you for whoever proposed a live stream. Yeah. Oh, taking notes, nice. Plus point for you. I deduct Jason Ray's point for you.
To call this the Axios.
Don't specify Axios lah. Now it has two same names, right? Okay, makes sense. Axios.get.
How to call this
API URL sounds okay. API URL, right? See, currently you're in this directory, the games, but now your constants is out here. So what you're gonna do is from this point, you have to jump up first. It's now in components folder. You have to jump up one more time. Now it's constant yes. So you jump two times. Dot dot slash dot dot. Slash. Now we move to components because it's not in components. Remove components. Remove the times. And yeah, I'll show you. Constants.
Wait.
Then have to specify something after the API URLs. Why do you return response to JSON? Response is already JSON. Okay. Nice. No, REST API is not regarding the structure of the database. REST API is just regarding the application flow. So from the backend, how does it fetch data from the backend? So using the HTTP stuff. But whatever happens on the backend, you know, Squad-based, Firebase, whatever there is, right? Some, even though you hard code it on the file, it's a backend. It's not regarding the API. So API itself is what we call the application programming interface, right? Basically, it's just the abstraction barrier. How does the front end affect the backend? So that is what we are concerned about. Whatever happens on backend database structuring, you know, this SQL or something, what's the backend?
okay.
But if you're wondering what kind of database you need to use, that depends on what kind of data you use. If it's document based, relational based, graph based, that's different. You know, it uses my money, right?
Oh, really?
To process the server. Ayo! You see, it's running on my personal server, you know. And this guy just randomly started.
Mine was
sorry, was running.
No worries. Continue spamming.
like I'm doing this already.
Ayo.
Yeah, wait. I'm not sure we sub out. Wait, oh, I'm send off. How much money is it?
Actually, that's a good question. I want to see. As far as I know, it should be cheap lah. So no worries. For this one, no worries. You wanna run how many times? Should be cheap. Eh, not this. CommIT backend, 27 cents.
Oh,
No, but it hasn't incurred anything today. It's only last time for maintaining itself. So yeah,
Can I use
you can, if you want to run it like 1,000 times, still okay, I think. Legit. It's literally cheap data. It's not that much to process. But yeah, don't.
my parents got
Exactly.
yeah, it turns out
Yes, because the node modules are gone now. Every time you make a new project, right, there's no node modules.
it's a
Node modules is like
tough you
on every project. Not every project.
I don't know if it's
I designed every invoice for okay, or I sure it's either that it's classic or you have it's not wrongly you start to there were no node modules before I did the SDN, so that means you installed your nodes, your files globally, and let's say you found it. It might be possible. It's basically the same thing, but like you use useEffect. But now go to the input, and now you will see there are so right now actually it's not easy to look at this. That means this automatically installed. That's nice. Looks like it's totally different. That's nice. Any questions? Can? Definitely can. Cannot? Okay. Okay. Yep. So, expected should be something like this. Forget the styles. The styles are basically I implemented. Yeah, but it should be something that looks like this. If I put the styles early, right, y'all might be confused by the class name, so I don't want to put that first. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, if no questions, now we are going to try to simulate what we call a post request. Okay, now we did a get request, now we just need to try to do what a post request is. So a post request is a very similar syntax with the axios.get. However, you change the get into post. That's about it. Okay. Now, so we change the get into post, but now under post, instead of just specifying the endpoint name, you have to specify two other parameters. First one is your body, second one is your headers. Okay, so headers is optional, but for body itself, I think it's optional, so we can specify an empty body, empty object as a body. But body itself would be basically, say if you want to create a form, you submit the email, address, name, username, all these would fall under the body. So you pack it inside a JSON, you send it to the server. Okay, any questions so far? The then and the catch is still the same, basically. So with that in mind, now let's try to actually do a hands-on for the gossip box. So if you recall last time we did a gossip box, right? It works, right? But every time you refresh the page, what happens to the gossip box? It's gone. Okay, so now we want to try to connect the gossip box to the database. In a sense that once you add a gossip, now it will be stored in the database. Now everyone else can actually see what gossips has been done before. Okay, to do that, now we change the endpoint from using catfact. Now it will be post. Okay, so you can try see also on the you can also try see this on the browser. There's already one post that I did this morning. Okay, so currently when you do a request, it should only take in like one attribute, and that is basically your body. So you can see also, just change the catfact to post. Yeah, so now the body itself You only need to specify a body and it will be added directly to the post. No. This thing you type this basically. So you can try send a body also if you're okay.
Why is my size like that?
Huh?
Now it just changed.
Yeah,
My size, my
it's a
size
live
is
stream.
even more lagging than.
It's a live
Everybody
stream. It's a you problem. Yeah. Have you all tried posting anything? No,
This
This one is the regard. The sword. What? Bro, you really want to make my endpoint break? Hey, karma! You later I make your endpoint break later. I mean, there's a better way of using string format. Yeah, if you want to try something, you can post. Then can refresh. Yeah, you need to do it in the gossip box. Okay. Yeah. Have you all tried? It just stuck. Okay, anyways. So currently you see that the request will only take in a body. So now we want to try to implement this gossip box functionality. So let's head over to your repo. And in the repo, let's move on to gossipbox.jsx. Inside it, we have the add gossip function. Your add gossip is basically similar to from last few weeks. The add gossip is just storing it to the state, then setting the placeholder as an empty string. Okay, so it's just nothing fancy there. But now we want to change the add gossip. Instead of modifying the state, now we want to fetch the call to the gossip box endpoint and to the post endpoint. Afterwards, once the data is received, we want to re-trigger to refetch the entire post list. So we have to implement two things. First one is to post the item. Second one is to actually get the posts. Okay, so now the list there should not be based on the state, but now the state should be updated based on the refetch post items. Okay, how can we do that? I think I'm like the prof now. I'm basically teaching you the basic stuff, then advanced stuff like you all do on your own. Nani?
Okay, can you I don't understand what's the body to the website.
Okay, the body is just a JSON that contains the early base, body, dot, something. Post present. And that's just a good definition.
So for this one, that's the URL.
Yeah, URL, comma, the JSON object of the body. So bracket, body, dot, first body. If you are stuck, let me know. This one is a jump from the previous item. I don't think we can cover Tailwind today. Empty header just put. Yeah, you can put empty brace. Don't put it in the square bracket. Yes, but the gossip itself, it should now contain the curly bracket, an object, then body for gossip. Because you have to specify that the gossip is active out. It needs to pass the body. So backend takes in the object, but it needs to read the value in the body key. Yes. Yes, exactly. No. You need to So backend will only take in one object, right? But this object now should have a body key. Yes, then the value will be deposited. Good question. Yes, if the then itself, maybe we are not going to rely on the response from the post, right? So in the then is the case where it's successful. So once you receive the response, what do you do?
Well, how do you define the response?
How do you define the
Like, how do you know like which key?
that will depend on the request schema. So the request schema is it's going to be backend provided. Right now the schema is basically just going to be a no, this one is basically the response, right? Response has the ID body. But for the request will just take it into account.
Oh, so that's tapi kan apa data kan data
Because you put a value for the when it's not matched the value, then you also don't need to do that.
it's always just like a message you just
Yes. But it's easier for you to do the get invite. Say you separate it out, it's a function. Then it's easier to see. That's the use effect. You have a use effect.
what do you do after you know
After this, okay, I think I can do the next slide. Okay, so after you receive the response, right? You're not going to do anything with the response. But now you need to refetch the entire list post. The entire list of gossips. Yes. So there should be a function that gets the gossips list. Here, functions to fetch. Then once this is fetched, right, there should be a function to retrieve the data. Whatever data is retrieved, then you set the gossip list as this. But then there's another modification also, since now the gossip list is not a list of strings, but now a list of objects. You have to modify the underlying data. You have to modify something else later. Actually, I mean demo this, I guess. No, rather accessing the key of the object. Okay, let's demo this, I guess. So Axios post. Are you able to do it? Not really. Where are you stuck at? Yep, okay. Then response. The this one is correct. Response this one doesn't need the body. It's just data. Then get gossip bracket. Your body here is also wrong. The body should be so right now your gossip is a string, right? Okay, but backend backend now wants something that looks like this. So you have to send this item to the backend. What is this thing going to be?
The string.
Exactly, this will be the gossip. So you have to construct this item first, then it specifies it. Okay, I think my bad, I didn't really demo on how the API should work. Okay, some additional knowledge for y'all. If you're wondering on how to actually test the API, there's actually one application which I really recommend for every single person, regardless of backend or front end, to actually download this thing called Postman. So Postman is an app that allows you to simulate API requests and response. Okay, so suppose this thing, if I do post, okay, so I can do something like this. I can specify the URL. After I specify the URL, I specify what method I want to use. So say this is post. Okay, then this post now will have actually like this will now have a request body. On the body itself, I need to specify the JSON. So if I specify only like say a string of gossip, say hello, this will not work. Because if I do send request, it will tell me this thing called non-field errors, which says that it expected a dictionary but now got a string. Okay, so you do a normal post with a gossip, this cannot work. So how can we mitigate that? Then that's the time you have to actually conform to the dictionary style, which you need to specify the body, but now with but now you need to actually specify this thing, which is the key value pair. The key is the body, and afterwards the value is basically the string that you want to specify there. So now if I send this, this will work. How does it know it works? Because the status now is 201. 201 means that it is created successfully. Okay? That is the purpose of a status code. Okay? Any questions? So that is exactly what we are going to do now. Okay, so on the gossip box, first thing I need to do is to, okay, easier one, let's just use a get gossip here. Can anyone help me specify what do I need to put when I do a get gossip? Axios dot? Get what? Get the endpoint? Endpoint is this thing plus plus post, right? Okay, then whatever response it returns, I will now set the gossip list as the response data. Then afterwards, I just need to do a catch. Any error, just do a console log error. Okay, this is my simple, humble get gossip. Any questions? Questions? Doubts? But if I adopt them, prefetch the entire gossip. What does it do? Is it like a get? I show later. Okay, so now I will need to create another one. Now I need to modify the add gossip now. So add gossip will now be changed into shucks. I just remember I haven't downloaded Axios on this. Shucks. I haven't downloaded this. Sorry. Next time I should have just downloaded at the start. Now I suffer my consequences. Okay. So now once I did this, the Axios get gossip, now I need to modify the add gossip. To do that, now I will do axios.post. Okay? Axios.post, my endpoint is basically this thing, API URL post. However, now this body has to be a JSON data. So to visualize this easier, I can do something like, I can create a request body. This is basically specifying the JSON object as part of my body. Then I see that it will now take in a value called body. It will take in a key called body, and the value is basically my gossip. Okay, so now I can just post this object, the request body. I can send it directly to my server. So I can do API URL plus post, then I do request body. Then, once I receive a response, what do? Anyone remembers what do we do after a response is received? Okay, we do a refetch, so we do get gossip. And this should do. So we do a catch error, console log error, done. Okay. Any errors? Should not be. Okay. Any questions? Questions, doubts? In fact, I think let's try to run this. So, localhost 5173. Ah, shucks, I haven't defined the routes. Anyone has a route I can copy? Never mind. Yeah, so if y'all are capo enough, right, you will see that I have a branch that has a completed items already. Yeah, so y'all can see later. So this thing, I can just go to my main, copy all this. Okay, so if I try to run this, I hope this works. Okay, say gossip. Let's do, let's do, Daphne is to my left. Then I gossip this. Ah, so now I have an error. I think this is still waiting for 3 seconds for you using the YouTube. So there's an error now saying that objects are not valid as a React child. Why is that so? Because right now, from the backend now returns you basically just where is it again? Basically, these are the things that backend returns. Okay, it's an array of objects, but now your gossip list expects it to be an array of strings. So how can we mitigate this? On the gossip box side, all you need to change now is instead of passing this as a string, now can just do instead of passing this as an object, sorry, now we can just access the certain part of this item. Say just now there's a thing gossip.body. So each of the gossip now represents this object, right? So now if we only want to get the body, then that's the time we just pass in gossip.body. Okay, so if I do this, try run again. Say Tiasin is to my right. Gossip now. Yeah, now it works. Okay. Whoever posts so many AAA, you. Any questions?
Mine still doesn't.
Can I? You see? What's the problem? See your proposal. Your gossip is now. Your gossip is it's a low priority cell actually. Because now you can take time to export it. This thing takes the current gossip list. This thing takes the gossip. It doesn't take after response. Whereas now here your set gossip is already empty, right? So after you do an add gossip, never mind. So after this your set gossip is empty. Then this basically say I add an empty string to my empty array. Actually set gossip has to be yeah. But now we should it's one should not be response to set gossip list, but you need to set gossip list to the data that is written by the response. Response now returns you data colon the array of objects, right? So you want to set the array of objects as your space list. No. Gossip, wait. Gossip is running here. Gossip list is here. You want to set the gossip list as the object return, the array return by the response. You can go back also see how you. So now you want to update the gossip list with the data fresh as we have response. And you cannot do response now. Yes, response doesn't have to return now.
And how to remove in
Oh. Nice. Okay. Oh. Basically, error that I skipped. Yes. Okay, everyone clear? Can? Okay, now let's move on. So I hope you all already understand on how Axios works. And so many steps. Okay, once you understand how Axios works, the next step we need to do is there's one hook that I want to introduce today, which is called your useEffect. But this hook, we are going to discuss after, let's take a quick 5 minutes break to prevent burnouts. Okay? So have a 5 minutes break. You wanna go toilet, go toilet. You wanna stay, can stay. You wanna ask, can ask. Okay? Basically, we are going to discuss the final part, useEffect. Tailwind, I'll discuss next week. Let's open another workshop next week. Hello. Where have you been? Yeah, if you all have anything to clarify, can ask. If you all want to challenge yourself, can also render the gossip with the ID also if you want to try. So ID space the gossip name. Try lah. That should work. Legit. It works. Because my backend takes in a text field, not a car field. If it's a car field of 150, then it does it.
Is it possible to release?
Response to data, the bodies. No. No, because response to data is an array. But you can do something like response to data dot map x to x dot body, then that's possible. But I don't want to introduce that. It will be much more complex. In charge is you can unplug the things. No, that's
Is it
very
too
much.
much?
Oh, you probably. Yeah, I haven't sent the slides. I sent a YouTube live stream instead. Ito. Shit. Let me see.
Why they call it postman?
Oh, why? What's wrong with postman? Okay, send ready.
Postman. Oh yeah, I used it before. I remember. She was full of
Back should be. No, just do that, yeah. You have to take it there.
It works. It's cool. You wonder, okay.
These are any environment variables. Thanks, thanks. Yeah. I mean, you need to know the thing is that kind of postman.
Pretty soon.
Pull up. Let me see, ah.
Works normally on the browser.
How do I go to this thing?
Dig apa ya? Dig pinte up. Dig
I
pinte up.
printed it.
Hmm. Oui. Huh? Huh? Server cannot find? Hmm. This is my postman.
Inherit after.
My postman has like, okay, forget the body because it's a get request. But my headers are this.
Oh, there's so many.
Which control, content type, content length. But content type doesn't matter. It's a get.
Can you
It's
go
a
to
get.
body? I just wanted to compare with mine. Body? There's nothing.
Body is
Yeah,
nothing. It's a get.
Headers.
Headers 5, yeah. So normal.
It shouldn't matter.
There's no typo because you can
Settings?
view
Yeah.
it directly.
Settings?
Settings?
Maybe?
Let's see.
Just compare. Okay, it's exactly the same. Fine.
Close postman, run postman. It's either that or the backend is broken because I cannot do NS. Google Chrome is a better debugger. Okay, shall we start? Okay. Okay, welcome back to Becoming a Better Front End with Jason. Although Jason is not a good front end either. Anyways. Okay, I think last problem for today. Let's put the tailwind next time lah, okay? Now, we have discussed about how to do API calls. I hope you all understand how the response data works also. Now we want to discuss the final hook, which is useEffect. Why do we need to use useEffect? Just now, Jason Ray mentioned a very important problem. Right now, we managed to have our API calls, but whenever you try to load, right, the item is not fetched. Gossip is you have to send something in order to actually fetch the data, or you have to use a button. So currently, all our API calls are basically event triggered. You need to have an event on click, on submit, on change in order to actually fetch the API call. So, how can we refetch every time we reload? Or how can we... You break my Martin hands moment, you know. How can we? You explain now. Okay, basically, you use useEffect. So useEffect is used to actually handle side effects. What do you mean by handle side effects? Basically, useEffect will now depend on certain dependencies. Okay, these dependencies can be variables. These dependencies can be just empty dependencies. Okay, when these dependencies change, useEffect has a function. This function will be invoked. So useEffect, you can think of it like just now we have to wait for an event to be triggered, right? So now useEffect will actually be the watcher. It tries to see when the event is actually triggered. In a sense, it tries to track whether an event is triggered or not. Okay, so this is how useEffect is used. Your general syntax, you see a lambda expression. So lambda expression usually is an empty parameter lambda, takes nothing, but it does something inside. Okay, why does it takes nothing and does something? Because you want to evaluate it lazily. If you don't put the lambda, this will be evaluated directly at start. You have an infinite recursion. Okay, so don't.
That's what happened.
Good luck with your Firebase. Okay, yeah. So lambda expression, have to put a lambda there. You don't want to lazily evaluate this. Okay? You don't want to evaluate everything at the start. Then you have your dependencies array. Dependencies array, this will keep track of what variables you need to track, as well as if you don't want to track anything, then you can just put an empty array. Okay. So now let's try to test your general understanding. Sorry, before that, this is important. useEffect is automatically triggered when a component is mounted. What do we mean by mounting? There's something called lifecycle hooks, which I forgot to introduce. So lifecycle hooks is basically what is a lifecycle? Generally, lifter, exactly. So lifecycle is basically when a component is being born after the component dies. Okay, the moment of a birth of component is when the component is going to be rendered, and that starting moment, it starts with creation. After the creation, then there's the mounting. Mounting is when it's about to be rendered lah. Okay, then afterwards it's already on. Then if you want to destroy it, then you kill it lah. Okay, so useEffect is going to be called during this mounting process. Before the items are rendered, it will check for the mounting first. Any useEffects will be triggered before it actually renders the component. Okay, so useEffect is actually part of the lifecycle hooks in a sense. Okay, so any questions so far? No. Okay, now what does this mean? Suppose if I have some data state. Then afterwards, oh sorry, yeah. Suppose I have a data state. Then afterwards I have a use effect. My lambda expression is just console log. Then in my dependencies there's data. What does it mean?
And data, there's any change in the data, it will.
Okay, so first one is this is triggered when there's any change in data. When else is it triggered?
When
It's first mounted. Okay, remember when first mounted, this will be triggered. Okay, it's something I just knew last time. For my project last 2 weeks, this is what I knew in the hard way. Because I triggered ChatGPT, right? But the ChatGPT is triggered twice. I don't know why.
Oh wait.
Mm.
I never managed to fix it.
Okay? Yep, so it's because of this thing. It's because of this thing, okay? Yep, so any change to data will trigger console log. And when it first mounted, this will check console log. That's why sometimes you need to have a variable so that you want to prevent this function from happening when it starts lah. So you can do something like if something is false, then you don't trigger that something like that. So that you got it only when it's actually going to be run the first place. Okay? What about this? Loading. 5-second latency.
That was faster. How did
What does it mean?
Trigger once the picture is rendered. Yeah, the trigger only once.
So this will only trigger once whenever the component is mounted. Okay? So when this component is mounted, loaded, right? Then it will console log hello world. Afterwards, it will not console log anything. So it does not have any dependencies, but only be triggered once. So when is this useful?
Setting.
This is useful when you want to do something that you want to refetch whenever a reload exists. Because every time a reload, the component will be mounted, right? Then that's the time this will be triggered. But once it reloads, right, then it will not trigger anything more afterwards. Understand? Understand? Okay, so now once you understand, now for the random cat fact, can you all modify a random cat fact such that it loads the random cat fact when it reloads? Ah. So when it starts loading, right? When it starts loading, initially there's a Tom and Jerry one. It's a hard-coded value, right? Can we directly generate a random cat fact when it starts loading? When it first loaded? You see now everything comes together, right? But you can do it. But mine is the wattage the same. The power.
It should.
Mine is the heavy brick 230 watts.
Oh, I think should can.
Should be I think.
Mine is 300.
Oh.
Mine is 3 points.
I mean you can borrow his also. His also actually. Because mine is the cheapest version. I buy a promo
Oh, wait, I thought it only works once. Only if the actual component. Yes, but that's mine is the biggest. What? So you use a track, fix my track, okay, and then you can, yeah. Yes, I feel. Yes. And me. Stop. Okay, so okay, but maybe for example, if I have a data. Holy shit! Every time you run it, also this is the see.
These people are killing my data. Yeah. Next time I use the Cat Ninja. I
think should nothing like slow. Should probably not.
Yeah. Is yours like this?
Yeah,
This is concerning.
Nani the heck?
You
You forgot to eat.
Wow, shucks.
A cat is a meat? What kind of cat face is there? Why are cats so red?
That is
Cat face. You. How many of them?
Eh, api rare.
School of fish fat. This is powder, clutter, glaring, and house. I'm not even sure. They split their console first because they did. So that's the value when they stay in the
Fuck.
okay, thank you.
Oh my god. Hey. Ay, I'm a little butterfly.
You just hang.
Hey, it works okay on my side eh. It only triggers it once.
Okay, I'll try
Yeah, it only triggers it. Oh. Hey, wait. Oh yeah, it triggers twice.
wait, your
It triggers twice. Hmm. Why is it triggering twice? Freaking use effect.
oh,
Cannot be async ma. Should it be async? Only was? No, on the network side.
oh yeah, I can try to get what the law.
Only triggers once.
On that effect.
Huh? That's nice. Oh, use Edge. Let's see. Let's see. No, it might be browser dependent. Mine also triggers twice.
I mean,
What the heck? Can I see a book? Oh, I love your styling.
My logic was instead of calling the function, passing. This is randomly.
Yeah.
I only managed to finish 5.
Let's see. Try to understand why. Sorry.
It triggers
Do you have like months? I mean, did you like No, I didn't even.
Mine still triggers twice. Oh well.
wait, how you respond to
hit that law.
That's you.
Why is it SU?
It's not going well.
As a plus one on TA, I felt hurt. How was the PE?
The difficulty was okay, but time management was.
Did they have graph problem? The BFS stuff, no? The DP stuff. No. They have like some kind of searching a path or something. No? Oh, last year was hard. Last year has a maze. Last year has a maze. The DFS thing, right? I literally sent my children. So last year when I was a TA, right, I created my own mock practical exam for my students.
And then there was the
That last question was indeed my last question. And I sent them the solutions. You know the worst part? None of my students read my solution. I am like, fuck you. No, I'm sharing now on YouTube lah. You can see also. Where is it lah? Personal notebook. Yeah, so last year I sent them my personal. Where is it lah? I actually created an extra practical assessment. I even wrote the test cases on Source Academy. Then, this thing, I have literally this thing called manipulating matrices. So I send a matrix of graph, right? I want them to find the shortest path from the start to the end. Which is basically similar to the final question of practical, except there's no obstacles. So they can just modify with the obstacles. None of my students read my solutions. Yes, my students got badly. I'm sad. Yeah, if you're wondering, actually, I wrote my own test cases up to like how many lines? 400 lines, I think.
Dynamic programming is just brute force.
No. No, dynamic program is not brute force. Dynamic program is brute force in a better way.
Yeah, I think the beam is saying that it's the better brute force.
Okay, anyways, I am not sure what happens, but my cat fact is triggered twice. So, yeah, but anyways, if you understand the use effect and can run, I think it should be okay.
I'm not sure if it's triggered. It's instinct. Yeah, I think maybe it's low speed.
I actually don't know. Okay, on this I will search later. Okay, anyways, I hope you all understand so far. Any questions on use effect? You can experiment also later on the box one lah. But anyways, it should be most of this. Okay, then I guess since we are out of time, then I will end it here. There's another part for CSS Tailwind. I think I'm planning to have it next week, I guess. If y'all are okay.
Okay.
And then, can I ask for your opinions, those who are here? Do you all want me to discuss some advanced React stuff? Advanced React. Okay, these are things that I wish to discuss, right, if we have time. First one is global state management through Redux and context. Yeah.
Sure.
So Redux, context. And second one is basically Tailwind and some CSS stuff. So this one is, Tailwind is definitely basic because I need to discuss that or else we cannot start our stuff. Then second one is I'm planning to discuss React and context. Third one is I'm planning, this one is not related, but deploying your own site. Actually making your site go live. So if y'all are interested, I can discuss this. But if you're not, then I can also stick with the current schedule. Current schedule actually just stops on the Tailwind. What do you think? Sure? Yeah, the other items like Redux and context might be useful for the CommIT, but not for everyone because technically only like 2 or 3 people will be working on that. But I mean, it will be very, very useful for your personal projects and other module projects also, if you're interested front end. If you're interested front end, yeah. But for the, yeah, and the other one, deploying site is technically simple, but I can discuss some of the technicals so y'all can make your site go live. Just a bit of show off. Basically, what we are going to do is something like this. I created the Figma site, which unfortunately we weren't able to complete today. But the Figma is actually like we are trying to change the current barebone layout to something that looks like this. This one is still uncolored yet. I will color it later. Yeah. Send copy pasted from my personal website.
Wait, you're a full stack.
I'm a full stack.
Oh, I thought you were from that because last 2 weeks you complained about being a from that.
I complain about being a front end because now I know back end, so I complain front end.
Oh,
Or else I will not complain lah. It's my daily bread. Any questions so far?